fights. Johnny's 58, chasing the lights. Both had battles that brought them low, but they found a way to steal the show. Health concerns were weighing them down till they found a path that turned it around. Carnivore diet, they took the lead, finding strength in the promises they keep. Now they're living wild, living free, healing body and mind, just wait and see. Tune into the truth every single week. Real talk with Brian and Johnny, that's the peak. 8 p.m. on YouTube, gather near, uplifting vibes, let's give a cheer.
All right. Hello, everybody. We are live. We've got Rick with us tonight in Milton.
Yeah.
So Rick is our special guest again for tonight. So Johnny and I, of course, are here like normal. Rick is here, as you see on his little tag, Carnivore since 1983. I've got the comments popping up here on the screen so everybody can see them. We've got Carnivore Coach Edens is here, so hello. Anybody else is here as you're getting here, say hello in the comments, ask any questions that you might have of us, and then we'll get into our topic today. So let's see what else we got. Oh, Kookie is here as well. Hello. There's Coach Edens, of course. So great to see people already coming in. Johnny. Yeah, Johnny, I'm going to switch it over to you and let you talk about our topic. This is a topic that Johnny came up with, and I think we'll be better off. You're well versed into it if you kind of do our introduction into the topic tonight instead of me.
Okay. So this got my thought. You know, we've had a couple of different documentaries come out about the carnivore diet. Of course, the one that the big one that's coming out sometime next year is Healing Humanity, The Power of Proper Human Diet. There's one that I watched called Animal that was really good. And then we had Rick on a couple weeks ago, and anybody that, if you know Rick's story, if you don't, you need to learn this story. Rick's been carnivore since like 1983. We figured out that, Rick, you just had your 42nd anniversary of eating carnivore, right? With the exception of a small time you went plant-based that didn't work out at all, you went back to carnivore. So essentially for 42 consecutive years, you've been eating this way. And so what got me thinking about this topic is that Rick doesn't go to the doctor. Rick doesn't take prescriptions. Rick is not on dialysis. Rick is not going to a nursing home. Rick is still extremely strong, active, agile. And so I don't know if I had a thought or a dream. What if everybody ate like Rick? What if nobody was sick? What would that do to the economy? There's something called the law of unintended consequences. And I've actually heard Rick talk about this in some of his videos. So if say 20 million people decided, you know what, we're tired of being sick, we're tired of being inflamed, we're tired of the arthritis, the brain fog, the AFib, the high blood pressure, all that stuff, and they're going to do keto, ketovore, carnivore, or just get away from all the ultra processed food, all the soda, all that stuff, what would that do to the economy? How many people in the real economy would be affected by that? You guys know, if you've watched our channel at all or watched my channel, you know that I work for an ambulance service. And what I do is I pick people up from the hospital and I take them to a nursing home or to hospice, or sometimes back to their home if they have a hospital bed set up at home. Because if they're on a stretcher, they go in my ambulance. Not wheelchair people, stretcher people. So I'm seeing people younger and younger and younger. And this is all day, every day. And I'm one of 4 trucks we have. And the hospital has 20 trucks. And this is what we do 7 days a week. And I'm thinking, the dialysis centers are making a ton of money. The hospitals are making a ton of money. The ultra processed food companies are making a ton of money. And all these companies employ people. What would happen if 20 million people or 10 million people or 30 million people decided that they were tired of living like that? What would it do to the real economy? And so I asked ChatGPT that question. I kind of had a pretty in-depth conversation with AI, ChatGPT. And basically it said these companies would be in big trouble, that they would have to have mass layoffs. It would probably hurt the overall economy. But big companies like PepsiCo, for example, would probably retool and start trying to sell carnivore products to stay relevant in the market. So that just opened up a whole can of worms for me, thinking, how deep does this go, and how much of our economy is actually based on keeping you sick, keeping me sick. And so that's kind of the lead in. If anybody wants to jump in and give me your thoughts, your comments, we'd love to have it. But Rick, what do you think? Am I hitting on something that's at least kind of interesting to think about or to talk about?
I've talked about that for a long time. My parents and I used to talk about it. I used to talk about it with my friends because I've always been kind of cheap, and I don't spend money I don't have. I've never been in debt in my life. I tell everybody, if you want me to buy something, you need to pay me enough money so I can afford to get it. And when it comes to being sick, now, I really wasn't a sick person in my life. I mean, I used to get a cold and I got ear infections and all that stuff as a kid, but I was never really chronically ill. I actually didn't want to live because I was so skinny and short and I hated my life and I got picked on. So I decided I was going to give myself a heart attack. So initially I thought, well, maybe the medical system will have to take care of me because they'll have to pick me up off the floor after I've fallen over. But as I lived and I grew taller and I got more active, I didn't think about it. I continued to eat this way, even though my parents did convince me, along with my other friends, to try plant-based. Then I felt like crap. And then actually I did need a doctor back then. But in 96, when my doctor was telling me that I had the highest cholesterol he'd ever seen in a 28-year-old, and that he was convinced that I was going to have a heart disease, heart attack by 55, I thought, well, you know what? So what? So I stopped going to the doctor. Now, the last time I had a health plan, I believe was in 1998, and I canceled it. They raised it. Now, back then, I used to be able to get a health plan for $150 a month, but I said, you know what? I never go to the doctor. Why am I going to bother with this? So I just stopped paying the health plan. I said, screw it. If I get sick, I get sick. What am I going to do? And then over the years, I lived my life. I did what I need to. I never felt bad. I never really needed a doctor. I've had people tell me, well, you need to get a checkup. Like, I feel fine. Why would I get a checkup? Well, at the very least, check your blood sugar and blood pressure. I said, look, I could do that at home. So I actually got a hold of one of those little blood pressure testers where you prick your finger and you put it on the strip and you put it in there. I started looking at it. The blood sugar range anywhere from 60 to 100, somewhere in that range. Blood pressure, 90 over 60. And you've seen me take the blood pressure right here on YouTube. And it always ranged in the good range. And I never had trouble sleeping. I had friends that had to get that mask for sleep apnea when they got into their 40s. And then I got another friend like you have that had the atrial fibrillation. He has to take a pill for that. And I got friends as they got older, they start having back trouble in their 30s, 40s, knee problems. They blamed it on football injuries and sports, and then shoulder injuries and constant headaches and all these things. And here I am. I don't even have anything. My medicine cabinet is a museum. You open that thing up. There's a prescription in there from 1979. There's an aspirin bottle, a glass one. I have no idea how old that thing is. There's a couple of eyedroppers. It's all old stuff in glass, and it's covered in dust. I never use it. So they say, well, what do you do when you get a headache? I don't get a headache. What do you do when you get a cold? Well, I take it easy. Usually when I start getting sick, I feel it. I'll try to slow down in my work. Now, I don't have a regular job. I work different jobs. So if I don't feel well, I cut back. I said, look, I don't feel good today. I'll do it another day. And it's no more than 2 or 3 days. After this first day, the second day, you feel the worst. The third day, you feel better. You can do some work. And then I slowly ramp it up. I never take any of those cold remedies. I used to take them when I was a kid. They made me worse. So it just got to the point where the last time I actually needed medical care is when I fell through the roof in 1983. And I've had a few like flu and cold and stuff like that. I did get a tetanus shot sometime, I think in 1989 or 90. I stepped on a nail out in the yard and went all the way through the shoe, so I got a tetanus shot. And I think that's the last time I received any medical care. In fact, the last time I got a blood test was in 96 when they told me my cholesterol was high, and I haven't had one since. So when it comes to medical care, I've had zero medical care in the entire 21st century so far. 25 years, and my medical expenses has been this much.
Thoughts, Brian?
So, yeah, I want to go back real quick. When Rick was talking about some of his friends that do a standard American diet, that sounded just like me when I was eating the standard diet. Back pain in my 40s, in my case, right? To the point of I could not, between hip pain and back pain, I couldn't sleep in bed. I'd be in bed for a couple hours a night, tossing and turning, and I'd get to the point after a couple hours I couldn't take any more, and I'd go downstairs and sleep on a recliner the rest of the night, where you're basically sitting up, right? Because I could not lay in bed. So that was me. AFib,
Wow.
that was me. I was having 2 to 3 episodes a week. After going to Carnivore, I've well documented this. I no longer have any AFib episodes. It's been over 3 years now. And within the first probably 2 to 3 weeks, I was sleeping in bed with no pain, no back pain, no hip pain anymore. Within 2 to 3 weeks of going to Carnivore. So yeah, I could have been one of those people you were talking about.
Well, there you go. And see, I don't even know what back pain feels like. I've never had it. And hip pain, I thought that was for like really old women, that break their hip. I don't even know what hip pain feels like. Knee pain, don't have any. I got friends that have plantar fasciitis, just like Johnny mentioned he had. My friend up in Ocala, he suffers with that. Of course, he's obese, but still. And he says, that's terrible. I've stepped on stuff. I've stepped on broken glass where my feet hurt. He says it's worse than that. So I don't know. I guess I'm lucky. I've never had to experience that. The only thing I've ever had to deal with is chronic sinus issues because I have a defect. It's built in. It's a genetic thing. If you'll notice, my nose is kind of narrow. The septum and all that is messed up. And it's something I have to live with. The only way to fix it is surgery. And it doesn't bother me. Other than being annoying when I speak, I feel fine. I feel great. There's no pain. I also have a little bump I got on my arm when I went plant-based. It was an allergic reaction. It never went away. It doesn't hurt. So there's nothing on me that bothers me in chronic way. So why would I get medical treatment? I'm afraid they start cutting into you. They're going to make things worse.
Yeah.
So consider this, Rick, you've had zero insurance premiums. You've paid zero to the insurance industry in all the 21st century. Right now I'm paying about $380 a month just for me. My wife's retired, so she has Social Security. All my kids are grown, so it's just me. I went to the emergency room, if you guys know, 3 or 4 weeks ago. I went out there and tried to run sprints in the middle of the hottest part of the hottest day of the year with real high humidity, and I got dehydrated. I got the bill in the mail yesterday, $2,500, and I have insurance because I have a $7,500 deductible. So my insurance won't pay any until I make that. So even though I'm paying $380 a month, and my employer's paying about $500 a month, they're paying about 60% of my premiums. So you're figuring $800-900 a month that's being paid by one person to one company. I go to the hospital, I'm treated and released from the ER, and I get a bill for $2,580 something that I got to pay. And it begs the question: what if nobody paid into health insurance? They passed a law under the Bill Clinton administration, HIPAA, Health Information and Privacy and Portability Act. It basically says if a hospital gets funds from the federal government, they get federal funding, they cannot turn you away. So, and now under, I think it was the last administration or this administration, they can't put medical debt on your credit rating. They can't give you a low credit rating because you didn't pay your medical bills. So there's a real possibility that people could say, you know what, I don't want to pay that money. I don't want to, our employers could say, we're not going to cover you. We're not going to pay. We'll give you a $2 an hour raise, but you're on your own for insurance. And since they can't harm your credit, and a lot of people rent anyway, so what good is credit if you rent and you drive a beater car? But just think about how much, because you can Google it right now. If you guys have your phone out there, Google quarterly profits from United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna. Look how much net profit these insurance companies make every single year. Now, you would think that insurance companies would want you to be healthy, because this was the misconception I was under. Insurance companies do not want you to be healthy, because how they justify these extremely high premiums and these extremely high copays and deductible is because they say the population is unhealthy. Hospital and doctor utilization is up. Therefore, we're going to charge. Our costs went up 10%, but we went up 19% on the premiums. And that's been going on since 1993, right? So it's not the insurance companies want you to be healthy, so they'll reduce the amount of money that they're spending. They want you to be unhealthy so they can jack the premiums up more than their utilization cost. I mean, when my daughter, my youngest daughter used to race a BMX bicycle. So we got into that when she was a teenager, and she fell one time and hurt her shoulder pretty bad. And we went to the hospital and, emergency room, they got her fixed up. She dislocated her shoulder, but it ended up being fine. And we got the bill and we had to pay a copay, a co-insurance, and a deductible. My wife and I, we've got 4 kids. We've been raising kids for 40 years, over 40 years. We had never heard of a copay or co-insurance. We knew there was a deductible. We were prepared to pay that. But now they've added a copay and a co-insurance. So this kind of is a big, broader look at what we're talking about tonight. How much money would come out of the economy almost immediately if we truly did, to some degree, heal humanity? I mean, you're talking about that sucking sound you hear, that's money leaving the part of the economy that's keeping you sick and inflamed and going back into your pocket and maybe other parts of the economy. And that's kind of the broad look of this conversation tonight. Think about Kellogg's. Do you think about how much? I used to drive a tractor trailer, as you guys know. I did that for about 10 years. I got away from emergency medicine to do something different. And I used to go to Battle Creek, Michigan, and I would pick up Kellogg's Corn Flakes, Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, a 53-foot trailer, 8 feet high, 13 feet wide, or whatever the dimension were. And I would be in line. There would be dozens and dozens of trucks waiting to get there. And this was 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, one plant in one state. That goes on every day all across the country at multiple plants, whether it be Pop-Tarts, cereal, Rice Krispie treats, donuts, all this stuff. And all of that stuff is making us sick, but all that stuff represents probably 15 to 20% of our economy. You add in the dialysis centers, the nursing homes, the diabetes clinics. They're building 4 brand new hospitals within 50 miles of my house right now. We have tons of hospitals here, but they need more because every hospital in every city in every state, every hospital needs one thing to be profitable. And do you know what that one thing is? They need sick people. Without sick people, the system crashes. I think that, and I'm not saying this was nefarious from the very beginning, but I think it's morphed into that. I think the Director of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., like him or hate him, he has got some of these companies to agree to take some of the artificial dyes out and some of the seed oils out of their products. Well, the question is, why did they ever put them in there to start with? Why do you need yellow number 5 in cereal? Why do you need red dye in cereal? What was the purpose of that? To try to get kids to eat it. What's the most profitable thing in America? A sick kid, because you got them for life. Anyway, that's my rant. You guys pick up where I left off. I didn't mean to go on such a tangent there, but the wheels start turning of all the things that are out there to keep us sick and keep that money flowing from your pocket to somebody else's pocket.
Yep. So I'm going to derail us for just a second here because I'm going to show a few comments and then we have a question I want to make sure that we get answered.
Sure.
The Carnivore Coach Eden said Big Pharma would go bankrupt. That was at the beginning when we were talking about the whole scenario. And BK says, well, the meat farmers will grow. Definitely, you're going to have to, and this is another comment here, you're going to have to boost meat production over 3 to 5 years. You're going to have to look at that whole industry, right? And maybe some of those jobs will move to that industry, and that's how it'll work. But here I want to get to this question. Okay. Good morning from Holland. Who is the gentleman at the bottom? So that is Rick Rodriguez, also known as Charger Mopar. And they might be just having a joke here. I don't know. Maybe they know who you are. But in case they don't, Rick has been carnivore for 42 years. He's in his 50s now. So you can kind of do the math there. Like you were 17, I think, right?
15.
15. He was 15 when he started carnivore diet. Before it was even known as carnivore, just meat type thing, right? And if you missed kind of the beginning, maybe you want to go back after the live and watch the replay at the beginning. He talked a little bit about how he hasn't had need to go to doctors and all that kind of stuff. So great to have Rick on with us tonight. All right. I'm going to look for some more comments here, and I'm going to try not to talk too much tonight. I'm going to let you guys do a lot of the talking. So you guys get back into the talking. I'll just
Rick,
interrupt
I
with
want
questions and stuff. How's that?
that's fine. Rick, so I watch your videos. If you guys don't watch Rick's riding videos where he rides his bicycle, you got to. Rick has been living in the Miami-Dade County area. I'm assuming, Rick, most of your life, right? All your life.
All
And
my
so
life
Rick,
since 1968.
so Rick will ride around and he'll show, see this building here? It's now a defunct old shopping center. But Rick says, when I was a kid, that was a farm. You know, animals were raised there. And now it's a shopping center. And now it's actually a defunct shopping center. You got to watch Rick's riding videos. Man, he just gives a layout of the land of an urban area like Miami that at one time provided a lot of meat, a lot of food for the people of that part of the country. And so Rick has seen in real time, he's paid attention at how the agricultural space in America has been shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. But the reason it shrank is because people were going to shopping centers. There was more money in a shopping center than there was in a beef cattle. My dad is a beef cattle farmer. He's 82 years old and he's still a full-time farmer. And he's not, I mean, beef prices are very high right now. It's been well documented. If you've been to the store, you can't help but notice that. But my dad as a farmer is really not making any more money now than he ever made. Matter of fact, he's making less, even though the price of beef has gone up because they've consolidated the processor so much, the middleman. So, but Rick has seen in real time how we've kind of been forced into some of these, what I call Franken foods, the Pop-Tarts and the TV dinners and all this stuff that our human bodies were never designed to ingest. But I think there's potential there because a lot of the shopping centers that Rick will point out in Miami are defunct. There's nothing there. They were booming, thriving places at one time. Now they're empty lots, right? So if we did have a multitude of people go back to eating, and I'm not even saying carnivore, let's just go back to whole food, real one ingredient foods. So if you're vegetarian, Mediterranean, carnivore, keto, if you just ate real foods, and if you had vegetables, if you do the certified organic vegetables, things like that, it would dramatically shift the health of this country. I hope that we're on the way to that. I was looking earlier today at Dave Mack's channel. I went back and looked through some of his older interviews. He's been doing interviews for a couple of years. I think one of his for top 10, and he's interviewed me again since then. But I was just trying to count how many people that Dave Mack has interviewed. It was into several hundred before I gave up because I got tired of counting, of people that have come off all their meds. So somebody said in the comments a minute ago about Big Pharma going broke. Well, this truly could be an existential threat to at least a portion of the profits of Big Pharma. Rick, what do you say?
Absolutely. But the thing is, they won't go totally broke because there's always going to be somebody that needs an antibiotic, somebody that needs some type of intervention. Maybe they get a blood clot or something from an accident or trauma. Mm-hmm. So there's always going to be a need for medicine. But the thing is, there won't be the large need to constantly, because right now they basically thrive on their patents. When the patents run out, they rearrange the medications again so they can have a new patent. And then they've got everybody on a subscription. Basically, the parasite system, the debt-based system, relies on a subscription. The system that we live in now is inflation-based. So what they have to do, they have to keep inflating the money supply. The only way they can inflate the money supply is through debt. They can't just print the money because they're set up in such a way people, first of all, don't even use much cash anymore. I'm one of the few people that uses cash on a regular basis. But most people, they use credit money. And the thing is, if you're going to use credit money or bank reserves, they have to come from debt. So how do you get people in debt? Well, you inflate the price of homes, so they have to buy that on debt. You inflate college education, so they have to go into debt for that. And then you inflate the medical system. You rise the prices higher and higher. My dad told me when he had to go to the hospital when he almost cut his finger off back in the 60s, it was like a $200 bill. So what they do, they keep inflating. And then these hospitals, they create debt because as the demand goes up, they keep adding on. The bowling alley that used to be around the corner was turned into a hospital in the 70s. It has been increasing in size so much, it swallowed up the gas station. It swallowed up all the houses around it. It's got multiple stories now. It's this huge building. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. They even have a heliport in there. And you see people in the neighborhood all the time. Today, the rescue was around the corner. Probably somebody had a heart attack or some other emergency. They took them to the hospital. And it's just everywhere. and it keeps growing and growing. But as long as they can charge people the money, they have the insurance companies. Insurance companies, they put their money in the stock market, which inflates that. They're also in the bond market, which inflates that. And the premiums that they get give them the money, the collateral to do that. So what they need a subscription basis with an income stream. Then they can create more debt. Then when they create the debt, if they want to make money, they don't pay themselves a salary. The big wigs, they just get stock options. They buy back their own stock, which causes the value to go up, and then they cash in on that. So they need a constant supply of people suffering or losing money to keep their system going. If everybody was like me and had no debt, didn't get sick, did most of everything themselves, I don't eat out, I rarely buy anything, all these businesses, all these stores would go out of business. There'd be no need for them. They would take the whole shopping center and they would replace it with a farmer's market. You'd have probably a cattle pen. You might have some fruits and vegetables. You might be selling people fruit trees and garden products and whatever. But the dialysis center, gone. You know, the doctor, the healthcare centers, the urgent care, gone. All these things would be gone. It'd be like it was when I was a kid. You had 2 hospitals, and that was it. That's all we needed. It's the same neighborhood, but we had the Baptist hospital and we had the hospital over here, and that was it. The American hospital, that was all they needed. Now you got urgent care. You got all these little medical centers. There's an adult daycare down the street. They have it's a babysitting for old people. They go there, they play their games and stuff like that. Shoot, when I was a kid, the old people were with their family. They were with their kids. They were doing stuff. There was no adult daycare. And the nursing home, the nearest nursing home to here was about 5 miles away. There was no nursing home here. There was no ALF. I mean, we didn't even have daycare for kids. It's just a completely different world.
So I think if we got back to that simple living like Rick is talking about, for example, I'm guilty. My wife and I, when our kids were little, we put them in daycare because my wife worked and I worked, and it took everything we made to live. And we made enough money that, like, one of us couldn't quit our job and stay home and keep the kids out of daycare because we both made enough money that we could pay for the daycare. However, between then and now, daycare costs have gone through the roof. But if we got back to simple eating, simple living, and got back to kind of how Rick grew up, things were when Rick grew up and when I grew up, and probably when Brian was young too. You know, all these businesses that are out there flourishing, that are taking your money and putting it in their pocket, would cease to exist. And so the whole thing of that was, you know, how many people will be displaced because of that? They just built a brand new Eli Lilly pharmaceutical manufacturing plant 6 or 7 miles from my house, just down the street from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And this thing has got to be 1 million square feet. It probably employs 2,500 people, and it's only been open for a year. They built this thing for 2 years, and I mean, there are loads of people that work there. That parking lot is huge, and this thing didn't even exist 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and now it's full, and they're ramping up production. I used to work at Lowe's, and they'd come in there and buy all the construction guys would come in there and buy the equipment, talking about how many people it was going to employ. And if we could just destroy the demand for all these, what, in my opinion, most of them are unnecessary. There's Rick's blood pressure. I wish mine would be like that. I wish Brian's was like that too. It's, you know, it's just funny. You start thinking about, like, so I Googled or Chat GPT'd, like, how many dialysis centers in there. So the global dialysis market was valued at approximately $98.5 billion in 2024, with the U.S. dialysis service market estimated to be around $26.63 billion in 2023, with projections to reach over $43 billion by 2032. That tells you right there, they're expecting more and more and more Americans to go on dialysis. Now, I went from stage 3A kidney failure to normal kidney function and got off all my medications by going carnivore. I don't take anything. I don't even take aspirin. I don't take anything. Yes, I do live in AFib. If you guys are familiar with me and my channel, I've been in AFib for a couple of years consistently, but I run sprints. I lift weights. For the last month, I've been working out harder than I've ever worked out in my entire life. And I am thriving. I am rocking it. And I still live with AFib, and I take no medications. Outside of the carnivore way of eating, I believe I would still be on a handful of medications, and I'd probably be out of breath walking to my mailbox, because my doctor, when I was first diagnosed with AFib, he said, John, you need to really, really take it easy. Don't push yourself. And I did the exact opposite. And if you watch my video from yesterday, man, I'm out there running that 50-yard dash. I'm getting ready for the Senior Olympics next year, the Senior Games next year, by doing exactly the opposite of what the medical profession told me to do. So, I mean, this thing, you just think about all the different industries that would be affected. Some would grow. Productivity would probably go up because most people miss work because they're sick, and they're not sick because they got the flu. They're sick because they're so metabolically sick. And then how many people do I take to the nursing home every day that are younger than Brian, that are going to the nursing home, right? And they're full-time residents there. And with a few different decisions, they could be gone. My, God rest her soul, my mother-in-law, when she was alive, she had to go into a nursing home. And doing some digging, we found out that the nursing home, this is 15 years ago, was $4,000 a month. She was in a semi-private room. So she paid $4,000 and the other lady in the same room paid $4,000. That was 15 years ago. Now I'm hearing it's around $6,000 a month per person. A lot of these nursing homes have 2, some have 3 patients in a room. That is big, big bucks. And it's 95%, in my opinion, 95% unnecessary. It's because people are making very, very poor decisions on eating, health, sunlight, all that stuff. So that was kind of the jux of this whole thing is, man, how broad is this thing of keeping Americans sick? All right, even people in the West in general, keeping us sick to keep the economy rolling. Like Rick says, they gotta come up with something to sell you something, or the debt system doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So let me ask you guys this question. I think we already see today how they try to suppress information getting out about carnivore diet, right? Because they know that people get healthy with it. But let's say at some point it really starts to take off, like we're talking, okay? What do you think, and Rick, we'll start with you. What do you think are the kind of tactics we're going to see to try and suppress so many people from moving to this type of way of eating?
Well, the biggest problem is going to be there's not enough meat, and I've experienced this already. I've had to cut way back on my beef because it got too expensive. If people start coming into the carnivore lifestyle, people like me that are poor, that are just scraping by, are going to have a really hard time. Hopefully, I'll be able to get out of here and into a rural area in the next year or two where I have access to more meat. But I do believe that's going to be one thing. But I think what'll happen, not everybody's going to benefit from the carnivore diet as much as they would say. Let's say that you had 100 people and they all switched to the carnivore diet. I figured probably at least a quarter of them would fail because they're just not used to it. Most people are not used to it. Now, everybody could add more meat to their diet. What they could do, and I think this works for everyone, look at what you're eating now and eliminate the problematic foods and replace them with more meat. Maybe go on a meat-only diet for a little while, and then when you reset, go ahead and add some of those plant-based foods back in. Maybe you can have the avocado. Maybe you can have some of the fermented vegetables. There's always something you can eat. You know, you might be fine with things like cooked onions or certain fruits, ripe fruits in season. Most people can eat without a problem. Now, if you're a sugar addict, well, that's the thing. But the problem with the system is that and a lot of people say that they're addicted to sugar. And that the problem is they take advantage of that. It's like the tobacco industry. Once they got them hooked, it was very easy to continue to sell them the product. Even if the product was deadly, they would simply lie about it or find a way to make it look safer, like put some filter on it and get them to smoke that. Even though there's still smoke coming out, any idiot could realize it's still harmful. But for many people, well, we trust the company. So a lot of these big companies, they will try to gain your trust back. So in other words, let's say in an ideal world that the meat supply went up. Let's say that more people started raising things like goats and there was more sustainable pigs, because you can raise pigs a lot faster than cattle. It takes 2 to 3 years to make a saleable steer or a heifer or whatever, but you can get pigs in a few months. I mean, in a year, you could have a lot of pigs. I mean, they run around wild. Chickens are easy. They grow very quickly. 4 months, you got a full-size chicken ready to sell. And you could breed ducks and other birds to grow fast. But when it comes to maybe goats, people could be trained to eat goat meat. Goats are pretty easy to raise. They eat almost anything. And with a lot of these shopping centers, these parking lots and all that, that could be converted. I mean, if you think about it, it's ridiculous, but you could take a shopping center, you could plow up the parking lot, fill it in with dirt, turn it into a pasture, and then use the building for maybe a hen house or something else agriculture related. You could do that. So you grow the meat supply. The big corporations, they like to make money. They don't care what they're making the money off of. If they're making it off of duck food or if they're making it off of meat, they'll be fine with that. So it's like you were saying, a gradual transformation, they could work with it. But a sudden transformation, it would bankrupt them because they all carry a lot of debt. All these companies, they have trillions in bonds. They have a lot of common stock in the company. And then you also have the preferred stock, which is limited in terms of how much they can get in the investment. But on the other hand, they're kind of stuck with the company. So a drastic change would bankrupt these companies and they would fight it. What they would do, they have the media, they have the budget, they can still borrow the money. They would start putting the scare tactics. Well, you're not getting the phytonutrients, you're going to get cholesterol. And the people will still fall for it because the medical industry is still connected to them. Most of the doctors, most of the professionals do not see the carnivore diet as a sustainable way of eating. And I've heard this many times. You know, Rick, I know you look healthy. I know you can do a lot, but that's not a sustainable way of eating. You will have a problem. You can't go without fruits and vegetables. But I've been doing it since I was a teenager. No, you have to have it. And you hear this over and over again. And the average person who's not a quack and not stubborn like me, I like what I like and I won't change because I know what works for me. But the average person may get doubts. They may try the carnivore diet. They may feel a little better, but they still got some aches and pains. They don't feel 100%. Of course, they've been damaging their body for decades. They think that 6 months on the carnivore diet is going to reverse everything. It doesn't work that way. You know, I damaged my fingernail by getting a splinter in it. It's already been 4 months and it still hasn't grown through. So you can see how it'll be another 3 months before it's completely grown out. You don't see it anymore. But they think just because they go on the carnivore diet, all those years of damage is going to go away. Maybe it may feel better. And these companies will use it. And then, like you said, they'll start coming up with products. Maybe they'll make a protein bar, or they'll make some kind of instant carnivore food. Maybe they'll make like the carnivore version of ramen noodles or something. They'll start selling that stuff. And that's what they'll do. But again, if everyone thought like me, they probably wouldn't have the option because I would just go right for whoever is producing the meat and buy that or raise my own. But thankfully to them, most people are not going to live like me. They think I'm a nut. They don't want the inconvenience. And, you know, but again, if it happened, there would be a drastic change and they would either go out of business or they would just have to change. They'd have to do a complete 180 and change their business model. And that's what I think.
So, Johnny, could you believe all the things in the grocery store that say carnivore friendly and they're packaged down the main aisle, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the keto friendly. You know, when I went keto, I was eating keto muffins, keto chocolate chip cookies, keto pancakes. If they put the word keto on the box, they jacked the price up about 300 to 400%. And I'm not even kidding there. And I would bring it home and I would eat the whole box or the whole package because it's keto, right? And I gained weight on keto. It was not favorable to me at all because I fell, and I'm a pretty intelligent, rational guy. But I saw that word keto. I'd heard, keto on the news. I'd heard it on the internet. And I said, well, I should eat this and I'll be fine. And my health didn't get any better. And I actually gained weight doing all that. My wife would just laugh at me. She says, you think you're doing something good and you're no healthier and you're actually getting bigger. So anyway, that's my thought. Now, what do I think that the tactics they would come out and do if this thing took off? Well, you guys know, if you watched Dr. Ken Berry, he and his wife Nisha were featured on, I think it was ABC News and then on Fox News about baby carnivores, giving their children a carnivore diet. And Fox News, which tends to lean right, you think would kind of lean more towards this type of way of thinking, had their own doctor came on a couple hours later and just poo-pooed everything Dr. Berry said, didn't quote studies, didn't quote anything. He said, oh, this is terrible. Those poor kids, they're going to, And I may be hyperbolic a little bit, but even Fox News brought their own doctor on to say how terrible this is. You can imagine if this thing really gained wings and started taking off, like Brian put in the thumbnail, carnivore trending or whatever, if it started trending way up. You can imagine the doctors, the experts they would bring on, and they would say, for example, my wife actually saw something when I first started carnivore diet a couple years ago. The show Biggest Loser, one of the trainers on the show, not Jillian Michaels, but Bob Harper, put out a he had a heart attack. So, I started eating a lot of fat and I had a heart attack. Don't do this. He's somebody that we watched on TV for 6 or 7 years, every Friday night or whatever night that thing came on. People trusted him because he looked good. He could lift a lot of weights and stuff. And he said he tried keto and he had a massive heart attack, and he's living proof that this will kill you. And so I think tactics like that would come out. It would be scare tactics. The problem is you're starting to have tens of thousands of anecdotes now, like Brian, Rick, myself. Maybe not so much Rick because Rick's never been sick, but you take people like me. Dave Max interviewed me twice, but I'm like run of the mill for everybody. He's no more high blood pressure, no more diabetes, kidney failure gone, brain fog gone, plantar fasciitis gone, osteoarthritis gone. So you're starting to have a plethora, maybe not a good percentage, but a bunch of people giving the exact same testimony. You know what I'm saying? And so that might lean it a little bit, because if people, the reason I went carnivore is because I had plantar fasciitis so bad I could not stand it. My feet hurt so bad. It was a 10 out of 10 most days. I mean, it just bring me to my tears. And I went on the carnivore diet because I thought if I could lose 40 or 50 pounds, maybe 60 pounds, my feet wouldn't hurt as bad. They might still hurt, but maybe not as bad. 2 weeks in the carnivore diet, I was eating pulled pork with sugar-free barbecue sauce exclusively. And 2 weeks in, my plantar fasciitis disappeared. I mean, I woke up one day and it was gone, and it hadn't come back. And then I started getting all these other benefits: lower blood pressure, kidney got better, A1C dropped, all that stuff went on. So, hey, Amy. So I don't know. I think the guns would be ablazing from the other side, trying to convince people that this is not what you need to do. Kellogg's, they come out with a study saying that Pop-Tarts are the most heart healthy thing you've ever had. You could see all that stuff. And if they did, if they spent $20 or $30 million in advertising, which for them would be nothing from their corporate profits, they can convince a lot of people that just like Cheerios, they say Cheerios is heart healthy. How many people out there right now believe that they can eat Cheerios and it's heart healthy? And it's the furthest thing from the truth. There's no study anywhere ever that said Cheerios was heart healthy. And so people give their kids Cheerios because, hey, it's going to help their heart. And it's probably the least healthy thing in the cereal aisle. But that just shows you the advantage they have when they can spend hundreds of millions of dollars in broad-based advertising, convincing you that they're right and we are wrong, even though we're living examples of what we're saying.
There is one thing, though, that I was going to mention, and that is if everyone was like me, I'm totally advertising resistant. It would be all money wasted. All the money they would spend on advertising would be thrown in the toilet because nobody would buy their stuff. People would be going to the dumpster, picking it up when it expired and taking it to the lake to give it to the ducks. That's what would happen to it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Brian?
So, so you're an EMT or something, right? Is that the exact term? EMT? Paramedic. Okay. So question here. When food companies like Cheerios, all right, so you said they say heart healthy or whatever. One of the things I know it says on there is may lower cholesterol. Now we know that you don't necessarily want to lower your cholesterol, but when they say may, how does that work like with the FDA that they're allowed to say may? Is it because there's a study that they can cite, or are they just pulling something out of their butt and just saying it may not, but it may. So I'm going to say it may. How does that work?
That's their out, Brian, because when they say may, it may or may not is implied. It may or it may not. They don't have to say or it may not, because when they say may, if they said it does, studies show, they would have to quote their source. But like I said, I think the last time Rick was on, these companies, these food companies can do these studies. Universities can do these studies. Anybody that pays for a study owns the data from the study. And if the study shows something that they don't want you to see, they're under no legal obligation whatsoever to produce that study. They own the study. It's their intellectual property. They do not have to publish the study. So that they probably did a study, found that it did not lower cholesterol, or not in a meaningful way. And so they had to trash the study, and they got permission from their buddies at the FDA, because it's a revolving door between Congress and these companies, So they probably got permission to use the word may, because may doesn't say will. May is may or may not. And like, for example, Brian, you and I had our first guest that we had on the show. I can't remember the guy's name. Remember the very first guest that you and I had on? He'd lost like 400 pounds. I can't remember his name. I apologize. But he taught me something I didn't know. Anthony. Yeah, we had Anthony on.
Irwin. Okay.
Yeah. And he's lost like 400 pounds or 300 pounds. I mean, some unbelievable amount of weight. And he taught me something that I didn't even know. And I've been a paramedic since 2000. Salt is bad. Salt is bad. Steer clear of salt. If you have a heart attack or a stroke and you come in my ambulance, I'm going to start an IV on you, and there's 3,500 milligrams of sodium in that little bag of fluid I'm going to give you. So if salt is bad, why do I use it if you're having a heart attack or a stroke? And we do it every single time. But yet salt's bad. So, and it's sodium chloride. It's what we call 1% sodium chloride. It's 3,500 milligrams of salt in that one bag of fluid, the small bag. So you get a couple bags of that, you're over 10,000 milligrams of sodium that we give you every time if you're having a heart attack or a stroke. But yet, if you believe what they tell you, oh, don't eat salt, don't eat. Remember the Miss Dash diet? So remember the Dash, Mrs. Dash? There is no lady named Mrs. Dash. DASH stood for their dietary approach to stopping hypertension. That's what DASH stood for. So all these low sodium things, and I can tell you from personal experience, when I went low sodium, my blood pressure literally went up. The more salt I cut when I was obese and inflamed, the more salt I cut, the higher my blood pressure went. Brick's already showed us his blood pressure was, 120 over 70 something, or then 90 something over. So, and I bet, do you salt your food, Rick? Do you use a lot of salt?
It depends. I don't salt beef. I don't salt most meats, but I do salt my heart attack chicken, and I do salt my eggs. And yeah, so I use some, but not a lot. But I do keep it. This is the only condiment I have that's handy, and then salt. And I've actually done experiments where I loaded the food with as much salt as I could. And guess what the blood pressure did? Nothing.
Went down.
Exactly the same. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting how hospitals contradict themselves over salt, because, like, all right, I'll use an example. When I went in when I had AFib, before I started the carnivore diet, and I was in an episode and my heart rate was really high, blood pressure was really high. So I went into the emergency room. They admitted me. I was there overnight. Luckily, I ended up getting out of AFib, but I was there, so I had to eat meals, and I was on the DASH diet because of my heart thing and could not have any of that. At the same time, because they didn't want me to be too dehydrated, and that can also, this is blood pressure again, 101 over 65, but because, dehydration can also cause problems with your heart, they gave me an IV with fluids consisting of a bunch of salt.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Oh, and just to kind of tie this together with our original subject, so the big hospital system where I live is called Atrium, and they just got bought out by something called Advocate Healthcare. So now it's like one of the largest health conglomerates in the U.S., probably the fourth or fifth largest. They have a multi-million-dollar contract, I believe. This is what I heard. I can't confirm this, but this is what I heard, and I tend to believe it, with Pepsi and Coke, because they have those machines, vending machines, in every single hospital. And those things, they sign a contract to have so many Pepsi machines and Coke machines and cracker and snack machines. You walk them down to any hospital, go to the family break room, and that's what you see, those vending machines full of crap. My mom, a cancer patient, my mom died of cancer while she was getting her chemotherapy, which we all know, if you're into the space at all, you know that cancer's favorite food is sugar. When my mom was getting her chemotherapy, they would bring her honey buns and orange juice to enjoy while she's having a chemotherapy. And my mom died after her second chemo dose. And I mean, you know, you hate to say the word evil, it's really just evil. But if you lay that template on top, everything seems to fit, you know.
Have you go in the hospital, like when my mom was in the hospital, they have a snack place like in the front, like a little mini restaurant. It's called Al Bon Pain. I don't know why they call it that. That is the stupidest name in a hospital. I don't think you want pain when you're in the hospital, but I think it's just French for bread. But it's all bread and desserts and all this duck food. And I looked at that, I go, man, I'm thinking, I'm in the hospital. Where can I get some real food? They have a cafeteria. There's no real food there. I can't find real food anywhere in the hospital. Where can I get a nice ground beef patty or even some pork rinds? Just plain old pork rinds. Don't have it. It's like, what is this? And I mean, I've eaten pork rinds and people look at me like, how can you eat that? That's going to give you a heart attack. Is it pork rinds are going to give you a heart attack? It's going to make your blood pressure go up. I pull out my blood pressure thing. It goes down. I'm like, no, I don't know. People, and it's a hospital and they serve you duck food. And it's really sad because none of these hospitals are going to serve you. It would be so easy. It's like I told my mom, look, hospital or nursing home, you want a simple meal. You get some ground meat, you get a few spices or whatever, and you put it in a pot and you boil it up. And that's it. And if you want some vegetables and fruits to go with it, you bring out bowls of fruit and vegetable. No, everything's prepackaged crap. It's all in a package. The so-called fruit they give you is in sugar water. So they have these little plastic containers with the fruit in it full of sugar water. And you smell it. It's like, this is horrible. Can't you just give her an orange or an apple or a banana? If you want to get sugar, just eat the fruit. Oh, no. The desserts, everything is rice. I mean, bread. It's just ridiculous. I tell, man, I hope I never have to be in the hospital because I'll starve. There's nothing edible there.
Yeah, that's true. I've heard people that are on the carnivore diet and have had to go into the hospital that have their spouse or family member or whatever literally smuggle in food for them to eat because you can't get anything good at the hospital. You really can't.
Well, that's it. When I had to stay with my mom at the hospital and rehabilitate in the nursing home, I put the food in a cooler. I had a little grill in the back of my truck, or I just threw it on the engine. And I'd eat that food because the food they give my mom, it wasn't any good. I couldn't eat it. I mean, I can't eat rice and beans. It'll make me sick. But then again, and you know, the funny thing was when my mom was in Baptist hospital, nobody would eat on the patio because they had ducks out there that would harass you for food. And it was so funny. So I went out there. Some of the nurses were there, and I saw the ducks. They come waddling up to me. They'll peck at you for food. And I got the biggest male duck, and I grabbed him. And then I said, oh, look at this cute little ducky. And everybody was looking out the window like, man, this guy's crazy. So I put my head next to him. I said, oh, you're such a cute little ducky. Delicious duck. And they were just like, oh, boy, this guy's lost it. And I was looking at it. I was really getting hungry. So the one nurse, she says, you look like you were ready to eat him. I said, I love duck. I can't resist, you know. I'm getting that temptation. Like, this guy's nuts. But it was so funny. They're serving all that duck food inside, and all the ducks are waddling around outside. I'm thinking, man, if I had some boiling water, I'd have myself a delicious lunch. He was a big one. I mean, he must have eaten so much junk food. This Muscovy had to weigh 16 pounds, and he was kind of fatty. You could feel it. So I know that would have been a tasty bird. But it was so funny. The duck waddling around. My friend was there. If he was here, he could tell you the story. Everyone seemed horrified when I grabbed the duck. But I feel sorry. I really do. And people think that stuff they serve is good food. I can't imagine. You know, for me, it would be torture. They'd have to try to force feed me this duck food. They'd think, oh, the guy's got an eating disorder. Like, no, I want real food. Give me some beef. Give me some chicken. Give me something. You know, give me a piece of fruit, but don't give me that processed crap. I'd rather eat an orange or a banana than that processed crap.
Okay, Rick, I think we got a question here for you. Since being carnivore for so long, how has the the norm of aging treated you?
Well, you can see the way I talk. You can see the way I move. Watch my videos when I'm working and riding. Look at any carnivore. Get a carnivore on a rant and see the way they talk. A normal person, an older age, is going to go, ooh. They're going to forget where they're going. But watch a carnivore. Even old guy Mitch, the carnivore, watch him talk. He goes on and on and on. He doesn't mix words. Metabolism slows down? Absolutely not. If you saw how much food I eat, you'd be amazed. That's anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 calories a day. That's a lot of food. And joint problems? Not me. I don't even know what joint pain is. Look, everything I have moves just fine. I have no problems. Again, health problems? What health problems? Other than a chronic sinus issue, I have no health problems. I haven't even been to the dentist, and I have crooked teeth, and I've never had a tooth problem. So, I don't know.
Talking about the whole dentist thing. So again, this is before carnivore. I had a cavity and a tooth that kind of like chipped at the cavity. So there's like a chip in the tooth now. And I went to the dentist and he said, well, we're going to need to fill that. You're going to get to a point that it's going to be too painful, probably in the next 6 months, right? Shortly after that, I went carnivore and any little bit of pain I had went away. And it's been 3 years now. And I still have that chipped tooth with no pain, no issues. Nothing at all.
I think, this is my theory, I think that as people damage their body with high blood sugar, it causes the blood vessels to begin to fail, the capillaries and all that. And there are blood vessels in your teeth. So I think what happens, not only do the teeth rot from all the sugar, but I think also your circulation gets messed up and the teeth die. And then they're not able to deal with that. So you get infections. It goes down in your tooth. You got bad circulation. It's like these people that are diabetic that lose their toes because their circulation's bad. That's what I think. Because I got chipped tooth. I got a molar I chipped on buckshot when I was eating some meat that we shot. And I've got, this tooth was broken. I got in a fight in junior high and that got broken. My teeth are crooked. And I have no pain, no cavities, nothing. I don't even think I get plaque. But then again, I haven't been to a dentist to get cleaning. Every once in a while, I'll get that hard stuff that develops. I just scrape that off with a little ice pick thing. And the teeth are fine. I've never had an issue. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's just being healthy. Because they say, well, when you get an infection in your mouth that goes to your heart, I think it's the opposite. I think that when you're unhealthy, you're more likely to get infections. It's not the infection gets into your bloodstream. It's the fact that your body's a mess. It's like an old car that's rusted out. It's got bad bearings. It's leaking oil. It's chugging along. It's just falling apart. And then you got the other one that's tight and got a lot of power, and that's less likely to break down. It just seems like that to me. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, though.
Mm-hmm. So how many quacks can you fit into a live stream? At least 3.
At least 3.
You can fit more than that.
So Shane asked, did you have any joint? Go ahead, Johnny.
Well, Rick's going to say no because he started this when he was a teenager, so he probably didn't have joint pain as a 15-year-old. But let me take that on. I have osteoarthritis in my right hip. I don't have the X-ray pulled up, but I can show you. 7 years ago, I had my left hip replaced. I had a new, metal hip put in on the left side because the pain got so unbearable. Well, obviously, when I started the diet, it was to get rid of some weight to help my plantar fasciitis. But aside from the plantar fasciitis, which was my biggest concern, I had really bad right hip pain because I had bone-on-bone arthritis. Now, I've been carnivore for 2 years with a couple of slip-ups, well documented, and there is starting to become a gap on X-ray in those bones. So I don't know if the cartilage is rebuilding. I do a lot of fasting too, and they say fasting can help build stem cells, and stem cells can go wherever and fix whatever in your body. And so I don't have any arthritis pain, and like Rick, I don't have any back pain. I don't have any back pain, no knee pain, no hip pain. I'm 58 and a half years old. I'm about just a little over, or maybe not quite a year older than Rick. And I've lived with pain for 25, 30 years, the getting old pain, the back pain, the hip pain, the knee pain. And for 2 years now, nothing, zero, nothing, no pain ever. I don't ever hurt ever. And it's amazing how just changing what I ate and how fast that happened. Yeah. There's Peter saying that he had terrible chronic arthritis in both knees so bad he could hardly walk, was bone on bone. After 3 weeks on Carnivore, pain was gone. And I bet Peter, did you take a lot of over-the-counter meds for that, or did you take prescription pain meds for that? Because prior to going on Carnivore, I was taking Advil, Aleve, Motrin, aspirin. I was trying to alternate, and I was doing everything I could to get the pain to at least be tolerable. And guess what? I don't buy any of that anymore. One quick thing, if I can, about our teeth. So prior to going on Carnivore, I had really bad teeth. They're still not great, but I would not eat a tough piece of steak. I couldn't risk it because I felt like my teeth would break or come out. Says going Carnivore, I think I get bite steel in half. I shoe leather. My teeth feel. I was trying to describe this to my wife today. I don't know how to describe this. I feel very confident in my teeth. They feel healthy. They feel strong. I had a filling in the tooth back here. The filling came out several years ago, and they refill it. Then part of the tooth would break away, and the filling would come out again. Well, I finally just quit going to the dentist because I was out of insurance for a little while when I was self-employed. That tooth has started to grow back. It's being remineralized, and it doesn't hurt. And to Rick's point, the vasculature, the veins and the arteries that feed your eyes, your cheeks, all of your head, your gums have that same blood supply, right? You can tell because if you get busted in the mouth, your gums will bleed or your mouth will bleed. There's a lot of vasculature, veins and arteries in there. Another part of vasculature is in your legs. I was so unhealthy for so long that my legs, both my legs, below my knees, between my knees and my feet, the hair quit growing. It looked like I shaved my legs like a woman. I had no hair on my legs whatsoever. Now, it's not as much as it was when I was younger, but I have a good bit of hair on my legs between my knees and my ankles. And as a man, that's kind of what you want. You want to be, have hair. It's natural. It's biological. And that hair has started growing back. Now I got a bald spot on the top of my head back there, and it's starting to fill in. And it's all because of the vasculature, the sickness inside the veins and the arteries, which is restricting blood supply. Had I not gone on Carnivore diet, the lack of hair on my legs would eventually have led to having a leg amputated. Look at that. Look at the hair on that leg right there. That's a hairy leg. So that's a guy that has healthy vasculature going to his limbs, his head, his arms, and his legs. His vasculature, his veins and arteries and capillaries are very healthy. So he doesn't have to worry about his hair falling out or even the hair on his legs falling out. I mean, it's living proof.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
What was
and
Peter saying?
I had really bad joint pain too. He was talking about
the pills or whatever.
Yeah. He tried CBD cream, pain cream. Yep. I had really bad joint pain too. Like I would get these bad flare-ups anywhere, knee, ankles, elbow, wrist, that kind of stuff. Any of those main joints, right? I'd get the flare-ups 2 to 3 weeks at a time. I would take whatever I could, Tylenol, etc., and whatever, ice it. And it's still it didn't really seem to help very much. But then since I've gone Carnivore, I have not had that problem at all.
So you haven't purchased any of those products?
No, I mean, we have it in the house, but other people use it, not me. I will say, and I got to be completely upfront and honest with everything. There's only one time that I had an issue where my foot flared back up, and that was after I took the antibiotic and destroyed my gut. And it destroyed my gut, and it caused inflammation to pop back into my body. And it took me a few weeks to kind of get past that, eating right and everything, adding some fermentation, that kind of stuff. And now I seem to be fine again. That's the only time in 3 years that anything happened. And it was right after taking the antibiotic that I had other crazy symptoms that came out of. And I only took the antibiotic for 3.5 days. It was crazy.
Yeah. Another thing, Brian, for me, I used to have heartburn really bad, GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD, heartburn. I'd go to Sam's or Costco and get that, the big tub of the flavored Tums, the big ones that you chew. I bet I've spent thousands of dollars in those things over the years. Went carnivore. I haven't had not one case of heartburn at all since the second or third day I went carnivore. So I haven't bought any Tums or Rolaids in over 2 years now.
I
So that's
forgot
money
about
that I'm not
that.
spending. You know?
Remember those commercials? Tums.
Yeah.
So, you know, Dr. Barry used to talk about before he found keto and then eventually carnivore, that he was the overweight doctor that was always in pain. And all the samples that they would bring in for like the different, you know, like Tums or whatever, but the more prescription based, whatever, he would take all those samples for himself because he was in such bad shape. And now he doesn't need any of that.
Yeah. This
You know,
is almost too easy.
I could never understand why things like Alka-Seltzer or Pepto-Bismol existed, because we always had it here. And I had one that was really old, a glass bottle of Pepto-Bismol that I found. I looked at it, I thought, man, I can remember when they'd give that as a kid, you know, and my parents would use it. But when I got older, I just never thought about it. People say, well, you eat all that fried food, you're going to get heartburn. I'm like, I never got heartburn. I'm eating 5 pounds of heart attack chicken, deep fried in pure lard, and no heartburn. They eat a little bit of fried chicken and they got terrible heartburn. Oh, my throat's on fire. I feel terrible. Like, not me. And then I got a headache. I need aspirin. I've had friends come here. You got an aspirin? I'm like, look in the medicine cabinet. Like, what is that? I said, I think that's an aspirin. It says Bayer aspirin. It's in a glass bottle. I don't know how old it was. No, I'm not going to take
40 years
that.
old.
Well, it's old. And the thing is, they said, don't you use aspirin? I'm like, for what? What am I going to use that for? You know, it's like, what's the other thing everybody uses? Ben Gay. Remember Ben Gay?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
My dad used to use that. And I don't have it. They said, you got any Ben Gay? I'm like, I'm not gay. My name's not Ben. But, oh, I got a pain. I got this and that. I'm like, nope. And then they say, well, Rick, you move stuff and you dig ditches and all that. You don't get pains? I'm like, no. Don't your knees hurt? I never see you use knee pads. I'm like, no, I never have a problem. So I don't know. I guess I take it for granted.
Yeah. Remember Icy Hot? I used to get those Icy Hot patches and put on my hip because my hip would hurt so bad. And if you forgot to take it off, it would blister your skin. I don't know how many times my skin hurt worse than the joint pain because I left that stupid Icy Hot patch on, fell asleep with it on with a heating pad, and basically cooked the skin. And since going carnivore, I mean, that's the one thing I wish I could impress upon people that ask me about carnivore or watch my videos or, you know, see me in some of these Facebook groups. And it's almost, like I said before, it's almost too good to be true that I can be this age, as active as I am. I'm jumping in and out of the back of an ambulance. I'm lifting. We had a patient yesterday, 510 pounds, 510 pounds. Our stretcher weight's 165 pounds. That's 600 and some odd pounds I had to lift into the stretcher because a young girl I was working with was 5'2", and the ambulance is this high. And I did it, and no pain. I run sprints. I lift weights. I do squats. I do everything, and I never, ever, ever, ever hurt anywhere.
You see?
That is just. That's just blows my mind because that's not been the case since I was about 35, 36 years old. And I think people think I'm lying when I say that. I don't see how they could at least not try it, especially if they're dealing with these aches and pains like you're talking about, like Brian had, before he went carnivore, and like Rick's never had, but he has friends that have this. You just try it, give it 90 days. And if it doesn't work, man, go back to what you're doing, but try it for 90 days and see if what we're saying is true. Maybe we're lying. Challenge, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong,
So let me tell a quick story here, because I know somebody out there is going to say, oh, the reason why you don't have the pain anymore is because you lost weight. So I'm going to tell you a story about me. Okay. I was an overweight person most of my adult life. I was skinny before that in high school, but most of my adult life, I was overweight. 2017, I actually did lose a lot of weight. I weighed less than I weigh now by about 30 pounds less than what I weigh now. Okay. I worked out a lot and I ate a diet that actually had a lot of vegetables to it. A little bit of fruit, but a lot of vegetables. Okay. I was constantly hurting working out. The recovery was horrible. I was always getting in pain. I was getting hurt. There were times I'd had to stop working out for a week or two because I was in pain. Okay. Now look at me again. I'm about 30 pounds heavier than what I was at that lowest weight where I was having those issues, but I'm not eating those vegetables and a little bit of fruits and so forth. And I can work out without any problems. My recovery is very, very quick. And that right there deflects the answer or the question of, well, it's just because you lost weight. Because yes, I have lost 80, 85 pounds, somewhere in there, right, on the carnivore diet. But I'm still heavier than I was when I was having pain. So if it was just the weight, if it was really just the weight and not what you truly are eating that causes the inflammation, then my story doesn't make sense, right?
Right. And Brian, speaking of recovery, when I work out and I run these sprints, when I went to my cardiologist, I showed him some of my video of me running sprints, and he said, "How long does it take before you recover and you can run another sprint?" 30, 45 seconds, a minute at the most. He knows I'm 58, 58 and a half. I'm in AFib. I'm in AFib right now. My heart rate's like 106 right now. I'm just sitting here. When I was on the treadmill at the gym today, it got up to 200. I didn't even notice it. I recover so quick, and it's just because I think the carnivore diet and prioritizing sleep and getting sunshine and just doing all the things that we're supposed to do, that I can live with AFib. Now I'm doing all I can to try to get it to go away on its own before the end of the year. That's my goal, to try to continue to do. I'm working out harder than ever. I'm eating cleaner than ever. I'm sleeping better. I'm grounding. I'm getting plenty of sunshine. I ordered me some new type of magnesium. And I ordered it like 2 weeks ago. Hadn't got here yet, but it's I think it's called colloidal magnesium. You actually put it under your tongue, and it's supposed to be really good for AFib. But even if the AFib never goes away, I'm still much, much better off than I was 3 years ago before I went in AFib with all the health problems I had. And I'm going to compete in the senior games with or without AFib, and I plan on doing pretty well. Anyway, so we kind of went around the world on these topics tonight. We started out talking about how it will affect the economy, and we were able to cover a lot of other topics as well. But it was a great conversation.
Oh, here's a good question. Just came in. So Johnny, you probably can answer this better than me, because at first, when I first went into AFib, I didn't even know it. It took me a while to learn what it felt like. So I'm going to let you really answer this one.
If I'm laying down, especially if I'm laying down on my left-hand side, I can kind of feel it in my chest. It feels like a fluttering in my chest, like my heart's trying to run away. Other than that, I don't really feel it. Now, having been a paramedic for 25 years, I can reach up here and feel my pulse here, and I can tell that it's very irregular. It's a little bit fast, but sometimes it skips 2 or 3 beats. It can be fast or slow. It's just very irregular. The hallmark of AFib is called irregularly irregular. In other words, there's no pattern, no rhythm to it at all. So it can be slow, it can be fast, it can be slow and fast. There's just no rhythm to it. Some people that have it, they get out of breath. Like you may have seen the commercial with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the former NBA basketball star. He would get up and walk just to the front door, and he would be completely out of breath. And if I went in such great shape, that's probably how it would be for me. But I guess because I'm carnivore, it doesn't bother me. But if you get up and walk up half a flight of stairs and you're completely out of breath, reach over and feel your pulse, or reach on your neck and feel your pulse. And if it's very, very irregular, then you're probably an AFib. Plus, you can buy, they make these things called cardiomobiles or whatever. It's the little device you can buy, and you hold it in your hands, and it will actually read your heart rhythm. I think they're $59 or $69 on Amazon. Or you can go to your doctor, or you can get, like, this is a Fitbit. My Fitbit tells me that I'm an AFib, but I know it anyway. But anyway, so I don't really feel it unless if my heart gets, like when I had to go to the hospital 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was very dehydrated, and I could tell it was beating really. It was like my heart rate was like over 210, and it would not come back down. But I was extremely dehydrated. Brian, when you finally did realize you were having AFib, what did that sensation feel like to you, the untrained person? Because when I get it, I recognize it because I've seen it for 25 years in my patients.
Yeah.
You not being in the medical field, when you got it and you realized something wasn't right, what did it feel like to you?
So, well, first of all, they told me the first time I went to the ER for it, they told me like one of the things that you'll notice is being tired. And I'm like thinking like this was before Carnivore, right? So I'm like, I always feel tired. Am I always in AFib? And they're like, well, no, you're already out of it now. So you're not in anymore, It's like, but I'm still tired. So how do I, but after the first couple of times I had it, I could kind of feel the heartbeat. Now I've never been somebody that is really good at the rhythm and noticing the rhythm. So my wife has been able to tell that, or, you can use like a blood pressure kit and see that you're out of rhythm, that type of thing. But I could notice like faster beating here. Right. And it was faint. It wasn't like it was a lot that I could notice, but I could just notice like have more harder beating, I guess. It's kind of hard to explain. But until I realized that that was the type of thing to look for, I didn't notice. I had no idea that when first time when I got diagnosed with it, I checked my blood pressure. My blood pressure was kind of high. But the heart rate was really high and it came up as irregular heartbeat. And I checked it multiple times and the heart rate just was different places. Like one time, it was like 150. Another time it was like 120. Then it was like 160, that type of thing. So I said to my wife, like, I don't know what's going on. So I think we need to go to the ER. So she took me and, then yeah, they hooked up a few things. And they said, well, you're in AFib. So that's how it originally happened. It was just by coincidence that I happened to check my blood pressure and see these crazy readings of my heart rate and the irregular heartbeat and think that there was something up with that. I saw a question in here. Here we go. Cynthia has a question for you, Johnny.
Okay.
Do you still planning on taking the Manitou steps when you do the run?
I know we talked about that on an episode earlier, Cynthia. I don't remember what they were. Was it somewhere you go and there's all these steps you can run up or whatever? I think that's what it was. You have to refresh my memory. But while Cynthia refreshes my memory, I was just going to read this to Rick. So Rick's never experienced AFib, but of course his two co-hosts here have. So while Brian was talking, I put how many men in America have AFib? And right now, estimates are, this is from last year, estimates are 10.5 million American men have atrial fibrillation. So Rick, me and Brian are 2 of 10.5 million. You think about how many men over 50, I guarantee you that's probably makes up the majority of that. So you've never experienced that, but over probably close to 11 million men in America right now either have or have had AFib. I had 2 cardioversions and an ablation, and I'm still in AFib. So if I had to eat Rick's heart attack chicken my whole life, I would not know what AFib. Of course, Rick has no idea what we're talking about here. This is like a foreign subject to Rick, but to me and Brian, it's something that we've lived. And 10.5 million American men are living with it as of 2024, and that figure is expected to rise. It's not going down; it's going up.
The funny thing about me, I don't even have to touch. I can see the pulse in this part of my arm. I can actually see it.
Yeah, that's the brachial pulse. Yeah. So it's got a little bit of a rhythm to it.
They say that that's really rare for somebody my age to be able to see it.
Yeah.
So Amy said her blood pressure cuff always says possible AFib. So is it actually saying possibly AFib, or is it just saying irregular heartbeat? Because there is a difference between like an irregular heartbeat that's regularly irregular instead of irregular, right? That could be something with an electrolyte imbalance or something like that, right? So that is the question I would have there. But then she asks, do either of you take meds for your AFib? I used to be on a blood thinner, and since I haven't had AFib in 3 years, I was taken off the blood thinner almost 2 years ago, I think it was actually. So it was about a little over a year in, like a year and a half into Carnivore when I was taken off of that. How about you, Johnny?
I took Eliquis, a blood thinner, and metropolol, which is a medicine to control the rate, up until I think it was towards the end of May. I went to see my electrophysiology cardiologist, the guy that works with nothing but heart rhythm, and he said, John, he said, you're in such great shape. He said, you can take this medicine or not take it. He said, it's not, you're doing so well that if you want to take it, take it. If you don't want to take it, don't take it. So as of, I think, the end of May, I have not taken any meds for it. I've thought about having another ablation. We'll see. We'll see what I can do on my own. Like I said, I'm doing really, really well, diet-wise, exercise-wise, everything now. Oh, yeah, Pikes Peak, Colorado. I would love to do that, Cynthia. I don't know if I'm going to do it anytime soon because I don't know if I got the money to go to Colorado and back, but we'll see. Hope springs eternal. I'm doing the events that I'm doing in the senior games are the 50-meter sprint, the 100-meter sprint, and the standing broad jump. That's the 3 events I plan on entering next year. Probably get last. I won't be surprised if I get last because some of the athletes I'll be competing against are like Rick. They've been healthy their whole life. This is my first time ever. I'm starting kind of behind the 8 ball, but this for me is really getting ready for 2027 because the age groups go 50 to 54, 55 to 59. Well, in April of next year, when the games happen, I'll be 59. So I'll be the oldest person or one of the oldest people in that age group. The following year, the age is from 60 to 64. And so in 2027, I'll be 60. I'll have another year of time to prepare for it. And so this year is just to get the experience and see what it's like and how much fun it is and try to get used to training. And then the 2027 is when I'm really going to try to make a real go at it. I'm going to do my best this time, but I think realistically I'll have a better shot in 2027. But I'm actually filming kind of in the background. I'm filming a documentary about it, kind of going from a guy using a walker that's in all kinds of metabolic dysfunction to competing in the senior games at the ripe old age of 58. So I'm making a documentary. It's going to be called Outrun Father Time. And so I've got a lot of footage for that. I'm working on that in the background. And that'll come out after the game so I can put the whole thing together.
So I want to go back to Amy here.
So Brian,
she says.
So you said about irregular. So this is pertaining to Amy's question. You talked about the rhythm could be regularly irregular instead of irregular.
Mm-hmm.
The regularly irregular heart rate is called atrial flutter. A flutter is regularly irregular. Atrial fibrillation is irregularly irregular. Both are. So
maybe I said that not the way I wanted it to come out. So yeah, flutters when you're stuck at a particular heartbeat that's not like your normal rhythm. Yeah. What I meant is like if you have like a skipped heartbeat, like let's say every 6 or 7 beats or something like that, that's more of probably some sign of like an electrolyte imbalance or something like that.
Exactly.
That's what I actually meant.
That's exactly right.
So sorry about that. So Amy says it does say possible signs of AFib on her thing, and her Apple Watch says inclusive. I can tell you on my Fitbit when I went into AFib before it came up inclusive. So this is what I would suggest, because I don't know why your doctor didn't seem to want to look at it any further. And Johnny, you're got a better background, medical background, so you can probably answer this better. But I would suggest asking for an EKG because that'll show if you are in AFib right now.
Yeah. Well, you could get that Cardio Mobile. You can order it off Amazon. You can get it, and if you have a flexible spending account, it will actually cover that. And then you can do it yourself. The reason her doctor said no big deal, shrugged it off, is because AFib is extremely common these days. And if you're not having any symptoms from it, it really poses very little threat, especially for a woman Amy's age. Now, if she were 25 years older, they would be a lot more concerned. But Amy's in pretty good shape. I watch all her videos. I've even seen her new channel. I think for her AFib, if it wasn't causing her any like immediate problems. She wasn't getting really short of breath. She wasn't having a pounding sensation in her chest. It's probably pretty benign. You'd be surprised the percent of population that actually has AFib.
Yeah. So this person says, I asked a cardiac surgeon who does AFib reversal surgery on a live stream if you can reverse AFib by changing your lifestyle and nutrition, but he did not answer my question. I can tell you my cardiologist straight out told me I could not, that I could change my diet and stuff and lose some weight. It might help, but it would not reverse it. I would always have AFib. It would always be a problem. And the fact that I'm now 3 years without AFib completely baffles him.
Well, Brian, how much money did he make off you fixing your heart yourself?
Nothing.
Dr. Tony Hampton did a video about 2 weeks ago about AFib and the carnivore diet. And he's a practicing medical doctor in Chicago. Look up Dr. Tony Hampton, his channel, and look at the video he did probably 2 weeks ago on the carnivore diet and AFib. He does a really pretty good little quick deep dive into how carnivore can actually reverse or cure AFib. And he is a practicing medical doctor. He's an ER doctor, actually. No, he's a general practitioner, but he's a practicing doctor in Chicago, and he did a video explaining the pathophysiology of how that can stop AFib.
So really quick, this here about frustrating. You see people making comments, but then they're not there. So we've got this live stream is being streamed on 3 different channels: Rick's channel, my channel, Johnny's channel. And depending on which channel you're on that particular channel, you can only see the comments for whoever is in there. That's why I kind of have this thing over here on the bottom. That's the bottom right corner, I guess. It should be showing all of ours. Unfortunately, it only shows we're down here this way. But I can't point the right way. I can't point right way, but it's like that way. There you go.
Rick's got it.
Unfortunately, it only shows like 3 or 4 messages at a time because it's a small screen thing. I haven't figured out how you can make it any bigger, and then it would probably go in the way of us anyway. But that's one way that you can see that. Otherwise, you're not going to see the comments that are coming from from the other channels on the live stream. So. My dad, this is from Broken Carnivore. My dad had AFib but suffered a stroke and didn't recover and passed away in 2019. He was at a healthy weight, but he smoked for 50 years and ate oatmeal every day. Yeah.
I'm so sorry about that.
There are actually a lot of people that are at a healthy weight and have AFib.
TOFIs. Thin on the outside, fat on the inside. They look really thin to look at them, but if you look at their liver, their heart, their kidneys, their pancreas, it's full of fat. And if he smoked and was any sedentary, ate oatmeal every day, he could have been what's referred to as a TOFI, and where he had fat that, like he didn't have all the subcutaneous fat that I have all over my body. He had fat inside his organs, specifically his heart and his vasculature and his pancreas and stuff.
So, Amy, sleep apnea is definitely one of the main things that can cause AFib.
Yeah, those two go together like that. They're almost always together.
I'm hoping I'm not missing any questions. I'm trying to catch up. There's a lot of comments in here. Like I see one here, that comment was for chargermopar, Rick. And I'm like, I don't know what comment it was, so I can't bring it up. I don't know where it was at. Oh.
Hey, hit that like button. I don't care whose channel you're on. If you haven't already, hit the like button for us. Get that algorithm cooking for us. Somebody said they smashed the like button on all 3 channels. Thank you so much.
Now, here's a good question. I wonder if all these people wearing Apple Watches has anything to do with the great increase in heart rhythm abnormalities. I can tell you that I didn't have a Fitbit when I first got AFib, so at least for me, it had nothing to do with that. I think it was like a year and a half later when I finally got a Fitbit after I had it a few times. I thought it would be a good idea to kind of keep track, especially if I was having trouble recognizing when I was in it.
And it could be that people are having these irregular heartbeats and don't know it, and the Fitbit is telling them they're having this. Because like right now, I'm in AFib right now, and I'm having no symptoms whatsoever. But I had AFib I just got this Fitbit 2-3 months ago, and I've had AFib for 18 months. But I was already aware, obviously, that I have AFib.
Yeah. And yes, I completely agree with this, that sleep apnea should go away over time on carnivore. For some people, quicker than others. Yeah, the AFib medication, the blood thinner is the big thing that really thins your blood, and then you have to worry about bleeding out.
My blood is naturally thin. It's always been that way.
Yep.
Now that I'm on carnivore, I think it's the same thing. My blood is thinner than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like natural instead of being on a blood thinner.
Brian, are you still taking magnesium?
No.
Yeah, I'm still taking magnesium every day, and it's somewhat of a blood thinner. That's why they say you shouldn't take magnesium and blood thinners together. But I still take magnesium every day, just as a counter supplement.
So I will take some sort of like an electrolyte mix that has magnesium, potassium, sodium. I guess basically just that stuff in it. Sometimes, like if I feel like I need it, like if I was outside all day sweating like crazy and I just don't feel right or something, or if I worked out and I did crazy workout and was sweating like crazy in the summer or something like that. Otherwise, I don't even do any electrolytes at this point. I seem to be getting enough of all that from the meat I eat. Anytime I have blood work done, my magnesium has been really good. And I know your body kind of tries to keep that pretty level, but before I was on carnivore, when I first had AFib and they checked that blood level, I was on the lower end of good for magnesium, which was probably my body keeping it good so I didn't die, right? Type of thing. So it probably really was a bit low. So yeah. Let's see.
And I know Amy is rocking keto. Amy, there might be something in your ketogenic diet if you're not doing carnivore that might be causing some inflammation to keeping that sleep apnea and going. If you could maybe try carnivore for 30 days, strict carnivore for just 30 days, and see if it makes a difference with your sleep apnea or with your heart rate. Just try it and see. It may not, but if you're doing keto now, if you could back it off to ketovore or maybe even carnivore just for 30 days as an experiment and see if it makes any difference, that might be time and money well spent, actually.
That's a good point. I started out doing keto for the first 3 months and I saw no difference. It wasn't until within a couple of weeks of going carnivore that I started to notice a difference. Things like joint pain, my AFib, and all that kind of stuff. I know, Rick, you got nothing to say here because you've never experienced AFib, so you don't know what to think.
No,
we gotta get this back on topic. We gotta get back on topic. And I'm like, it's taking me forever to go through comments. So you guys get us back on topic.
Well, we're just talking about, if everybody did this way of eating, or for, several million people decided over the next year, 2 years to go ketovore or carnivore and get off all the, processed food, ultra processed food and medications, how would that negatively affect the economy? You could have a blood pressure like Rick's, 105/68 with a heart rate of 64.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the weird thing is, the older I get, it stays the same. Most people that I am familiar with, they expect that as you get older, your problems will increase. And I'm sure that happens eventually when you're getting ready to kick the bucket. But for me, I don't see a difference. I can do exactly what I did when I was in my 20s. There's no difference. And it makes sense because I'll give you an example. My cats have lived anywhere from 18 to 21 years. It takes them 2 years to fully mature. That's 7 times. So if you think about it, if a cat took 2 years to mature, 7 times that is what? 14? So,
Mhm.
and they live over that. So they may live 8 times. And it takes us 20 years to mature or more. And how long do we live? The average person, how long do they live without having chronic problems? Maybe another 20 years. So it may take them 20 years to grow up. Maybe in their 40s, they start having problems. That can't be natural. So the way I figure it, you should be able, I think humans could live somewhere. The Bible says between 70 and 80. I would say 90 and 100. I think that a healthy human should be able to live between 90 and 100. They should remain in their prime from their 20s up until their 70s. And then after that, you begin a slow decline. That's what I think. It just makes sense if you compare us to the animal kingdom. You compare how long it takes for us to mature and then how long we live. So if people are getting sick in their 40s, that's way too early. A person in their 40s should not be an old person, or their 50s. They should look more like Dr. Chafee or Dr. Baker, not like some of these other people you see, not like, what's that vegan doctor? Dr. Greger. That's not what you want to look like.
Yep.
So, or any of these people. A lot of these famous people you see that are celebrities, they look terrible. By the time they reach their 50s, they're falling apart. Usually they get into alcohol and drugs and who knows what else. And my other theory is that people get into alcohol and drugs. That's not what made them sick. The reason they got into that stuff is because they were already mentally off or physically ill. Because healthy people like me don't get anything out of alcohol or drugs. I don't see the sense of it. So I think that in many ways, this illness starts when we are young. It may start in your preteen years, and it just slowly gets worse and worse. And then people try to manage it their way, and they make it worse. They start drinking or smoking or using some kind of drugs, and it just makes the situation go downhill faster. So my theory is that they've normalized illness. So it's kind of up to us to tell them, no, that's not normal. We're more normal than they are. You should be like us, not like these other people that you're looking to.
I have a lot of my former high school buddies and people, the ones that are still alive, because a lot of them have died from chronic illness already. But they'll come on there, they see, because I post my YouTube videos, I'll put a link to that on a Facebook, thing, and people will see and they'll send me comments or messages, I can't believe you can run. I can't believe you can do squats or lift weights or do those, inverted push-ups. And I'm like, I should not be the exception. Everybody in my class should be able to do this. We're not old. We're not even in our 60s yet. I mean, you can watch some of the senior games. You go on YouTube and look up senior games. They have a category of 95 to 100. They have a category over 100. There are people. There was a lady last year, 95 years old, ran the 50-meter dash. Now, she got third out of 3, but she's 95, and she broke her hip last year. So last year, she wasn't able to compete. She came back this year and competed at 95 because now she didn't say anything about the carnivore diet, but she moves her body. The biggest problem today is we sit down and we stare at screens, whether it be a TV screen, a computer screen, a telephone screen. And I'm 58, Amy, 58 and a half. I'm just a little bit older. Rick's 57, I'm 58, and Brian's 51. But I'll be 60. I'll be 59 in March 2nd. So, but part of the problem is not only what we eat. That's a big part of it. Obviously, I think that's the foundation of what's wrong. But the other problem is we just don't move enough. Watch Rick ride his bicycle. I watched him the other day. He was sweeping his driveway and raking his driveway and picking up all this trash. And he's just very active naturally. He's not like, am I right, Rick? You're not planning to be active. You just have an active lifestyle. And that, along with the carnivore diet, keeps you young. And you probably live. I would not be surprised if you don't live to be 100 plus, if you continue on the path that you're on. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't.
No one in my family's ever lived that long, but the longest we had was my grandfather lived to 94, but maybe. You never know. Yeah. My mom always said that I reminded her of him because he was kind of a junkie collector kind of guy and didn't worry about much. And he died in his sleep at 94. And the day before, he was walking the dog. He said never had any pain, never was in the hospital, lived his whole life. He didn't eat the carnivore diet. He ate, I don't know what, but he still lived to 94. So it's possible. Anything's possible.
Rick, do you think the combination of people having a terrible diet and being very sedentary is exponentially worse than either not eating a carnivore diet or not moving your body a lot? You think those two things are exponentially worse?
I think also when stress is added, that's the other
Yeah.
factor that really ages them. Because even me, I've always eaten the carnivore diet, but when I was super stressed out with my mom, I actually put on body fat. And I cannot find the picture of it, but a friend of mine did take a picture, and you can see that I looked fatter, even though I ate the exact same diet. After my mom died, within a few months, my body went right back to what it always was. And I was amazed. My friend was amazed. He says, Rick, you look completely different. In 3 months, all those years of taking care of my mom reversed. It was like that. It took me years to add body fat, but it all disappeared in 3 months.
That cortisol level dropped, which means your insulin level dropped.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was just like instant reversal. In fact, when they took my driver's license picture right after my mom died, because I lost the thing, it got thrown away, my face looked different. And I had someone look at it and say, that you look younger now than in that picture. I said, yeah, because I was taking care of my mom. So I was holding all that extra fat. But as soon as mom was gone, of course, we had the whole COVID thing and all that, but I eventually settled down and relaxed. And it was quick. It wasn't like some people, well, they have to lose the weight and it's taken forever and they can't get it off. For me, it just dropped without thinking about it. I didn't make any other changes. And I was able to sleep because my mom used to keep me up till 3 a.m. I went back to going to bed 11:30 like I normally do and waking up with the sun. And it fixed it. And I don't even get 8 hours of sleep. I get 7 hours, sometimes 6.5, and I'm fine. I never get tired.
I saw that comment, Cynthia. I appreciate that. Tell your husband, thank you for watching my videos. I hope it'll inspire him to think about what his potential could be. And I don't know, I've never met your husband, never seen him, but I'm certain that if he would go on carnivore and just start moving a little bit, that he could achieve all the same things I'm doing, because I am nothing special. I'm still overweight, as you can see, but I really feel like right now I could walk through a brick wall if I wanted to. That's how good I feel just by changing my diet and moving my body. But thank you, Cynthia, for that nice comment. I appreciate that.
Okay. So we've gone a little over past what we normally do, but it's been great conversation tonight. I think we should kind of wrap it up at this point. Rick, I want to thank you again for coming back on tonight. Maybe we'll have you on more often. You were on a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
On tonight, so we'll probably have you on more often. But great conversation tonight. I want to thank you, everybody watching the video, for all the comments. Yeah, just a really good discussion. A lot of comments out there. People commenting, with each other, making comments about things we were saying, everything. Some good questions that came in. So thank you, everybody. So Rick, I'm going to start with you. Any last words you want to say before we end the show tonight?
Well, I'm sure everybody by now knows my experiences, and everybody is hopefully watching my videos. If you're not watching my videos, check out my channel on YouTube. It's Charger Mopar, or just look for anything that says 39-year, 40-year, 41-year, or 42-year carnivore. There is only one. I am the only one. I am the longest term male carnivore on the internet, the longest carnivore in the United States, and the biggest quack. So if you want to get a good laugh, and I don't get offended, some people do get offended, I don't. So you can feel free to comment. I see people in my live commenting. That's what it's there for. And have fun. Enjoy your life. Don't make it unnecessarily difficult. If you can find things that you like to do, do it. But don't eat garbage food. Try to eat the carnivore diet. If you can't, maybe add some plant material, but if you do add plant material, make sure it's local and seasonal, and make sure that you don't become addicted to anything. If there's any food product that's making you eat it, you need to just break free and just get rid of it and reset. And I think with anything in life, if there's something in your life that is dragging you down, you need to cut yourself off from it, get rid of it, and move forward, because there's no sense on dragging yourself down, especially with the limited time we have in this world, when you could be moving forward, and you could also be an example to the people around you. instead of letting other people lead you down into a hole. You be the one that's up there and you got your hand out, and if they want to come out with you, that's fine. If not, don't stress out about it. Just keep moving. That's what I do.
And if you didn't already know, that's his channel down there, right down there, at chargermopar. Check it out. All right. Johnny, let's go over to you. Any last words from you?
Just want to say one thing, Brian. I think you put on Facebook recently, what's the one thing that you had experience with carnivore or whatever? And my answer just came to me like that. It was finding this community. And, we have some people that come in here, Cynthia, Peter, Amy, that come in here every Wednesday and interact with us. Rick if he's not here, he's always in the chat. I just encourage you, if you're not in some of these Facebook groups or YouTube chat rooms or whatever, it's just so amazing to be part of this community. As you guys know, nobody in my family does this way of eating. So outside of this community, I have nobody. But by having this community, I'm re-energized every day to keep going. I see that it works for other people. I love interacting with everybody on here. I love all you guys. And I just love this community. And I hope you guys will continue to tune in on Wednesdays, because Brian and I are going to keep doing this. Maybe we'll have Rick on some more. And it's just a blast. And I love each and every one of you guys for coming on. And if Brian puts out good videos, if you haven't, go through Brian's playlist and look at some of his videos. Brian has a way of just breaking things down. He doesn't put a lot of, bells and whistles in there. He just gives you data, his experience. Sometimes he puts recipes on there. Go to Brian's channel at Wikivore and check him out, because you will not be disappointed. I love Brian's videos. I love Rick's riding videos on Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. If you ain't busy, go on Rick's live Saturday, 8 o'clock with Rick. And you'll enjoy that too. So just shout out to my two co-hosts here. I love these guys to death.
All right. I appreciate you both. I appreciate everybody watching. Tune in next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. We'll see you again. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.